Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the Du Millard et Demi de Dollars sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
All right, I don't know what it means, but I assume it's Le Habitant.
It is $2.5 billion in French. Thank you to my good friend Google Translate.
Oh, okay. Good. I like it. I thought you were going to go something Canadien, but I didn't know it was going to be in French. Well done. Mm-hmm. Yvan Cornouillet-esque.
That's all I got.
Maurice Rocket Richard-esque.
Exactly.
Larry Robinson-esque. Come on, you can't go down the list. You got nothing for the Montreal Canadiens?
Kirby Doc.
Come on. Are you serious?
Vincent Damphousse.
Oh, no. Jacques Plante-esque? What?
Yeah, that's too old for me.
Oh, God, thanks very much.
Hey, you
and of course
it all the time.
No, but hey, how about giving me something that actually pertains to our life, my other life?
Martin St. Louis.
Martin St. Louis. There you go.
There
you go. Former Mid-Fairfield coach, left the Mid-Fairfield Rangers to take on Le Habitant. There you go. All right, now you're getting better. Carey Price, my son's favorite player.
Okay, we're done naming Canadians.
Well, you were done a long time ago.
That's all I got. Big news out of the hockey world. Michael Andlauer.
Damphousse.
He's a legend. Canadians legend. Michael Andlauer, who bought the Senators last year, owned a 10% stake in the Montreal Canadiens. He had to sell that 10% stake. Our colleague Kurt Badenhausen broke the news last week that deal happened. He sold the stake back to the Molson family, which is the control owners of the Canadiens. But the interesting number here, Scott, as I said it in French, I'll say it in English, $2.5 billion valuation on that stake. By far a record for an NHL team, in a transaction.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be listening to you. I'm sorry, but I was looking up Vincent Damphousse stats and news.
Oh, legend.
No, I don't think we can include. I mean, it was like Maple Leafs, then Canadiens, and then San Jose Sharks. I'm not really sure. Like, again, we're not talking Cornouillet or Richard.
How about Jocelyn Thibault?
I like Jocelyn
Jose
Thibault.
Theodore? What do we think about them?
If we're going goaltenders, we got it. No. I like Stéphane Richer. That was good, too. Yeah, this does not surprise me at the number. It is the Montreal Canadiens, surely a premier franchise. I like the fact that the Molson family had the option to, or as they call it in the business, the ROFR, the right of first refusal to buy it, and they exercised that. What does that tell you about the Molson family and maybe the plans for the Canadiens moving forward? Because once I have control, I really don't need more of the asset, right? He could have sold it to somebody else, but they exercised the ROFR and said, we'll take it.
Yeah, let's dive into that for a second, because so much of what we talk about, the new private equity rules across almost all sports outside the NFL, is about making it easier for owners to take money off the table, for control owners to say, I don't need 80% of this team. I really maybe only need 51%. It's interesting to me, at least, to see an ownership group that is doing the exact opposite. This is a stake they did not need to buy. It had no effect on their
that would certainly be attractive to the Arctoses of the world that looked for premier,
would be
blue
attractive.
blood. Yeah.
So the two things that jump to my mind, I want to get your thoughts also. One, there's maybe the valuation of the team is maybe higher in this situation, that if you tell me you need to sell something and I know you have to sell it, which Michael Andlauer did, maybe my offer would be a little bit lower than if you told me, I have this thing that I'm considering selling. So maybe from a leverage standpoint, they figured buying this back now maximizes the value of their asset. And maybe if they want to sell it later, they can maybe get a bidding war together for it. And then two, if Michael Andlauer sells this team, you don't know exactly who he's selling to. Maybe he considers selling to someone that you'd rather not be an LP. Whatever it is, that maybe it definitely gives the Molson family even more control if they scoop up this 10% stake in addition to what they already have. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on why we may have seen this decision.
I think the Molson family is golden in its purchase here.
God.
No good?
Oh, terrible.
No. Do you ever have any friends ask you to bring back Molson Brodeur? You ever drink the Molson Brodeur?
No.
Go look it up, young man. Molson Brodeur. Go look it up. It's a real thing.
Jacques Plante was drinking?
Yeah, no. It's a real thing. Look at your Jacques Plante was drinking. I listen. It's a great asset. Like, what else do you put your money in, right? If I can have more of the Canadiens, and I don't care how much I already own, if I can acquire more of this asset, I'd like to have it. Thank you very much. We've seen what happened in the bidding for the Ottawa Senators. This is, not only is it hockey in Canada, right? You can see that there's two different, like there's Winnipeg hockey in Canada, there's Calgary hockey in Canada, yeah, and then there's Montreal, the Forum-esque, that there is that hockey in Canada, and there's the Maple Leafs hockey in Canada. Those, I think, are two different things. So if I can acquire even more, I'm going to do it, because I'm pretty confident that the value of the team, of the Montreal Canadiens, will not be going down in the near future for multitudes of reasons. The
Sportico valuations, which Kurt did almost exactly a year ago, and I believe are going to be updated at some point very, very soon at Sportico's website. But last year, the Maple Leafs were the most valuable team in the NHL, $2.12 billion. The Rangers right behind them at $2.01, and then the Canadiens were third in the NHL at $1.7 billion, and then a pretty big gap after that. So
Ottawa's going to change all that. Calculus is redone after the Ottawa sale.
And this sale, I would think, to a degree also.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that when Kurt drops those numbers, it's hopefully at some point soon, I think people are going to be surprised at the jump that happens from one year to the other in the NHL.
Yeah, and then when the Rangers play a few games in the Sphere and they can create even more revenue, you watch what happens to that valuation too. That would be fun. That would not just for concerts anymore, my friend. Get me a Ranger game in the Sphere. That would be cool.
Is the Sphere big enough to host an NHL?
No, I totally made that up. No, totally made that up. No, that can't happen.
Sure that's deliberately not made for that. But
no, not made for that.
The New York Sphere, when they do open it, can maybe be adapted for Rangers games.
Let me ask you this: just speaking of Rangers and Islanders, because they're playing each other, where are you right now on the allure of Islanders, Rangers, Devils, Flyers at MetLife, on the whole outdoor experience,
like a
festival-esque?
One day or two?
I think it's two. I think it's a 2-day thing, a Saturday and a Sunday. Do you say to friends and loved ones, hey, here's a chance in February for us to go stand outside in New Jersey for a while. You're going to do that? Or, nah, I'm okay.
Can you bean pot it? Can you do 2 games Saturday and the winners play on Sunday?
I don't believe that's the way the NHL schedule will work. No, they're just 2 individual games. It's one Saturday, one Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, it's interesting. The NBA in-season tournament is a clunky but in some ways elegant way of squeezing a tournament into a regular season that had very strict, obviously, scheduling constraints to it.
Yeah, let me interject though right there before you remember where you were. So make a mental note as to what you were going to say, because I don't want you to have. Okay, so you got that. But I did see a whole lot of backlash on the courts, which I think was totally intentional, like just to get everybody talking about it. Your thoughts on it's all part of sports business. The design, the rollout of an in-season tournament, just people just want to talk about anything that has to do with that tournament.
I think the thing that's getting overlooked about the courts is one of the challenges for the NBA with this tournament is just educating even diehard basketball fans.
What is it? What
Who
regular plays
season
when?
Games
what
count
happens?
Towards it, right? Yeah. And one of the things the court does is the minute you turn on one of those games,
you know
this is okay. Right. This is a regular season game that counts for the in-season tournament, and I think the NBA is, and I'm writing a very small piece of this for later this week, but I think the NBA is doing as much as possible in as many different avenues as possible to educate fans, to make it clear to basketball fans, casual basketball fans, and avid fans, this is the structure. These are the games that matter. It's uniforms, it's court, it's structure. They want to make sure that there's less confusion about what it is, what's at stake. So I think that the court, is actually a really smart way of making it immediately clear the minute you turn on a game. You can't miss it. Okay, this is something different than a regular season game. This
is either a Boise football game or an in-season tournament NBA game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there is something very smart to that that I think is getting overlooked a little bit.
Speaking of NBA, wait, no, finish your point first. Where were you? I had you bookmark, and then I'll go back to what I'm thinking about in-season tournament.
What I was just saying is that I like your idea about this outdoor festival kind of thing, and I think that other leagues are. MLS just did this with its tournament against Liga MX, in-season tournament in the NBA. I think we're going to start seeing leagues, everyone maybe but the NFL, start to be more creative about what they can build into their regular season that is sellable both to fans, to media companies, to broadcasters, to sponsors, whatever it is, something that builds a little bit more drama into an 82 game regular season, or in baseball 162 game regular season. I think there's just more that has to be done, and I think that idea is actually a really good one.
Can I go to my Kreskin thing? I like to pull my Johnny Carson Kreskin. Right, we do this. Yeah, so you say in-season tournament. I will say hello, exclusive package to Amazon.
Very smart. So yes, there is obviously a business motivation here, but I also think that these seasons are very long, and if you're an NBA fan, or you're an NHL fan, or you're a baseball fan, the months 2 through 4 of the season are not that consequential, and anything you can do, even for fans, just to make those early things more enticing, I think is something that all these leagues are going to look at.
Absolutely. And guess who I got to see in person last week?
Guess who you got to? I know you were in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Dale Jarrett.
Well, I did get to see Dale Jarrett, and well, again, as I said,
did he hit did he get to the point of
as I told you, our C-suite event was in Phoenix in partnership with SeatGeek and NASCAR.
Yeah.
And as part of it, we did some ride around the track. So, as I told you, I was told that my driver was Dale Jarrett. I couldn't. I'm just going to be honest. I could not pick Dale Jarrett out of a lineup, and he had a helmet on and everything. But we had a nice conversation about the Standard H. Said something about NASCAR maybe moving towards sometime soon the automatic transmission.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not full, but I said to him,
"Well," and I'm outraged by that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I told him I learned to drive a stick shift on, I believe it was a '74 Honda Civic, and he went into of course, you wouldn't believe how many people can't drive a stick, and I was like, well, I'm not a hardcore racing fan, but the whole idea of an automatic transmission seems sacrilegious to me. Okay. And he chimed right in and goes, yeah, me too. But he's like, but the driver's already using sort of, I don't know if it's Tiptronic or whatever, but they're using that, like the hand control gear shifting.
Paddle shifting, yeah.
Yeah, paddle, so it's all different anyway. But we were doing Standard H, man. We did some good speeds up around the bends. But yes, Dale Jarrett, he was my driver. Getting in and out, by the way, you've been very impressed. I did really well getting in and out of the car.
Oh, because there's no door, right? You're going.
Yeah. You got to, pulling yourself out. I thought I might, pull something, strain something, but I did all right. I did get my Hans device caught on the way in, so I had to duck again, like a reset. Okay. But I did all right. No, but I took in the World Series clincher, by the way. So we were just there, happened to be there for that. And then the next night, talk about like your networking and fun thing. We had a conversation with Bubba Wallace. But we did it at the Phoenix Suns-Spurs game. So we had Wembanyama going against KD and Devin Booker. Devin did play.
Breakout game, right, for Wemby?
What's it?
Breakout
game he went for 38. Yeah, Wemby went for 38. So sort of this breakout game for Wembanyama. But it just got me thinking, there are times I talk about David Stern a lot on the show. And I was like, I was at a World Series game. I went outside and there's a protest of, world politics going on. Then the next night, I'm in a conversation with Bubba Wallace, who then came to us to see a 19-year-old French basketball player against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in Phoenix. And then the following day, I'm riding around the track with Dale Jarrett, and I'm taking in the NASCAR experience at a time when they're looking for a new media deal. And I was just like, one of those days where, you know what? This I really would like to be talking to David. Like, this was my weekend. What do we make of this? Who's best positioned? How happy are you that you got this Victor Wembanyama? This thing's going insane. He goes for 38 against a marquee player. It just encapsulated so much that was going on in sports business that I did actually say to people, I miss David. It was one of those times I would have liked to have shot him off an email and said, you got lucky with this guy, because it's apparent he's going to be a thing.
I believe, Scott, you were at LeBron's breakout game, which was his first game, right?
Sacramento.
In Sacramento.
Yep.
So you went to LeBron's first game ever, which he was clear he was going to be a star.
Yeah, you knew the kid was going to be pretty good.
There's a chance that you're going to look back on Wemby's awesome career and look back at that game in Phoenix and be like, that was the moment that the league understood and saw it all. I'm curious if there are any comparisons, anything you thought of differently about watching these two teenagers at very different stages in their careers and in their early parts of their NBA careers.
No, I would just say, like, LeBron, it was more of the expectation. There was so much hype at St. Vincent St. Mary and all the stuff that came on with him, the car he was driving, and there was just the cover of Sports Illustrated. I think Wemby really just signifies this global nature of the game. Like you just get the feeling when you've got the MVP is out from outside the U.S. You've got superstar players from outside the U.S. and gone is the notion that the league is just promoting a certain kind of player, or it's if you can play, you can play, as David used to say. The ultimate meritocracy. If you can play, you can play. And the amount of global eyeballs on not just the NBA, but you got all these other leagues trying to figure out what does Bubba Wallace do for the NASCAR fan base? Does he diversify the fan base? Is he bringing new people? And the answer is yes. But now as he moves forward, you got Michael Jordan, an ownership stake on the team. What do they do moving forward in terms of diversifying and growing the fan base? Everybody's asking the same questions. And obviously, the players, the drivers, they are the stars. They are the vehicles for which people, they want to tune in. They're the story. So it's interesting to see how these leagues are they all have their own storylines and stars and dramas. And of course now, NASCAR is going to have the reality series on Netflix following that template. The NBA with the in-season tournament, and we're talking about what does it mean? It's about new product that you can sell to broadcasters. Netflix is working with NASCAR. So you've got this ecosystem that everybody's trying to recreate, but who gets to take advantage and how and who does it best and who are the front runners and who wins? We don't know yet, but it sure is fun to watch.
And you're having these thoughts while the NFL's playing in Germany.
While the NFL's in Germany. And by the way, did you see the share number in Kansas City?
I did not know, but I assume it's going to be big.
Right,
if you're
go say something brilliant while I go look up the share number in Kansas City, because it's absolutely. I mean, this is unheard of.
I'm trying to guess now what I think it might be.
All right, hold on. I can probably have it. Let me see if I can find it really fast.
So this is the percentage of TVs that are on that are watching the football game.
The number of TVs in use were tuned to the game. Now keep it. It was early morning, so that helps.
Yeah.
What percentage of the games of the TVs that were on in Kansas City were tuned to the Chiefs and Dolphins?
I know it's high. I'm going to say 72.
Okay, well, Card Sharks. Remember Card Sharks, the game?
No.
You don't know Card Sharks? Where you'd go higher, lower, lower.
No,
Keep going.
Keep going higher. Okay, 78.
Keep going.
82.
Keep going.
Jeez. 87.
Now, either all of the dials and the remote controls were broken in Kansas City, but this is keep going.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. We're in oh my God territory, right?
Yeah,
keep going, Eben Novy-Williams. Keep going, Eben Novy-Williams.
I'm gonna hit an end in 7 more. 97.
You might see. Yeah, this is where I was hoping you would downshift to the one at a time. 94%.
That is an incredible
of the
number.
TVs in use in Kansas City were tuned to that football game. The only thing I can compare it to, and boy, I would be so impressed if you could come up. It was the final episode of a certain TV show.
Was it MASH?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have gotten it if you
I don't mean to be pejorative. I'm so proud of you. Yes. It was the final episode of MASH. Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of. 94%. That's insane.
That's crazy. It's and
what were the other people watching? Let's pull the other 6%.
Started at 8:30 local, right? Which is not. I mean, that's early for some people.
Yeah, not everybody's up at that hour.
And I know we're talking about a percentage, so people who are asleep don't count for either end of that.
Yeah, their TVs are not on.
Their TVs are not on, but that is an incredible number. That's amazing.
Yeah, all right. You said to me outside, by the way, that I was supposed to tee you up for something in pro cycling. Now, I know we have some flow, and we could have done another hockey story, which we'll get to, that Ann Lauer and the Senators. Yeah. But I wanted to, because we're on this fun high. What am I teeing you up for? You? All right, I'm going to tee you. Ready? Eben, you had something you wanted to say about pro cycling.
There's 2 fascinating stories going on right now in professional cycling.
I know none of them.
And I know, and I just think our listeners may just be interested in them. So I'll sum up the main one with some comparisons to some regular sports teams. The most dominant cycling team in the world right now is a team called Jumbo-Visma. They are the Golden State Warriors of cycling. They come on recently. They won all 3 Grand Tours this year.
The Warriors are not the defending champions.
Not the defending champions, but they are the They're the nucleus,
All
the
right,
center
gold
of
standard of
modern cycling.
Okay.
And there's another good team, Soudal Quickstep, which I would compare to the Spurs. They've been around for a while. They've won some titles. They have the best young cyclist in the world right now, one of the best. Remco
Not
Evenepoel.
7'4".
Yeah, exactly. And they have been in talks to merge for the past month or so. And this was obviously a shocking development for a lot of the professional cycling world. And it sounds like it's not going to happen now. And one of the reasons it's not going to happen is that this young star, Remco Evenepoel, is a specialized rider. That's his sponsor. He rides a specialized bike. And Jumbo-Visma, this other team, which was essentially going to be absorbing him and a few of his teammates, they ride Cervelo bikes, and they have a ad infinitum deal with Cervelo. There's no end date to it. It is in perpetuity. Cervelo is the provider of bikes for this team. And essentially the headache of trying to figure out what was going to happen if Remco came over, but he was not going to ride a Cervelo bike, but the team had a Cervelo deal that they couldn't get out of.
So does this guy have a personal deal with the other bike?
He has a personal deal, yeah.
Okay.
And he is a superstar in all the ways.
And we couldn't do a cover the logo every now and then, a Michael Jordan on the medal podium, nothing?
To me, it is like this great reminder, obviously, never do ad infinitum deals.
Sure.
Every deal you sign should have terms, and there should be an expiration point or at least an opt-out for someone. But, this merger between two of the more dominant teams in professional cycling kind of took the entire sport by storm for a little while. And now there is talk of potentially essentially like a super league of sorts. 6 of the biggest teams in cycling are talking about getting together, maybe trying to pool their collective rights, trying to take over the sport in some ways. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners are not professional cycling fans, but there is 2 very interesting things happening right now that have shades of other sports, I think.
Of
in
EPL,
them,
of yeah.
100%, yeah. But my main takeaway there is to put some terms on your deals, guys, for everything that you're doing. Don't do an open-ended sponsorship deal that is going to trip you up at some point in the future.
Why don't we write about this? I love like the bike deal that nixed the merger.
I'm happy to. It's really interesting. So the one extra layer to this is that the Cervelo, which is owned by a company called Pan, which is a Dutch conglomerate that owns a lot of other cycling brands, in the aftermath of this thing falling apart, have now stepped up to be the presenting sponsor of the new Jumbo-Visma team. So they're putting a different one of their brands. It's not Cervelo, it's not Cannondale, it's another one, but they're putting a different cycling brand on the name of the team, essentially.
But that guy's going to do the original bike.
Oh, so this guy's on the other team. This guy's staying on his old thing. But
got it.
Essentially the way it worked, the tactic of trying to do all this ended up with one of their sponsors stepping up to be the name sponsor of the team. So in some ways, Jumbo-Visma got more money out of the back and forth of it. But a really interesting kind of sports business story happening in competitive cycling. And for folks who watched the Netflix documentary about the Tour de France, they'll know Jumbo-Visma very well. It is Jonas Vingegaard's team. It's Primož Roglic's team. It's Sepp Kuss's team.
I'm very impressed with the pronunciation and recall. This is really good for you.
I'm a big cycling nerd.
What happened to Greg LeMond? Tell me what happened to Greg LeMond again?
He and Jacques Plante are somewhere drinking in the French Riviera. I'm done with the cycling stuff, but I figured I would at least mention that there is some interesting business stuff happening.
No, that's awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, what are we talking about with Michael Andlauer and the Senators? We know he bought.
I mean, a tough week or 2 weeks for the Senator. The team is struggling on the ice, which obviously is not great for the owner. But 2 big pieces of discipline happened against the Senators. One of them, Shane Pinto, one of their young forwards, suspended for 41 games, half the year, for violations of the league's gambling policy. It's a little unclear what exactly
They said he didn't bet on hockey,
did.
right?
Yeah, I don't know if that means that he was betting on other sports or if that means he was passing information along to people who were betting on hockey. One of those things I think is way worse than the other thing. It's unclear exacy what happened, but he was given a very hefty half-season suspension. And then secondly, the league, the team, the Senators were finally punished for the aftermath of a very confusing trade mishap that happened a few years ago, where the Senators traded someone who had a no-trade clause that they did not tell or maybe weren't even aware of to the new team, and then the whole thing got unwound because essentially there was a contract clause that allowed the guy to veto the deal that nobody seemed to know about. And Michael Andlauer, who is the new Senators owner, as we mentioned, he bought the team earlier this year, came out very publicly and said that he was not really aware of, was not, the severity of either of these things were not really on his radar when he spent $1 billion, the most ever paid for a control stake in an NHL franchise. When he spent $1 billion to buy the team, was not aware that these two things were going to be this big a deal, which I think is actually really interesting. And I'm sure there's some kind of back and forth in there about what he actually knew, what his lawyers knew, maybe what was communicated to him.
I'm winking to you right now. We're going to dig into this. Wink, wink,
I can see
wink.
Scott winking, but at least very publicly, he is playing the victim in terms of things that materially affect the success of the team. They were docked a first-round draft pick. The Senators were for this trade thing. So two things that affect their on-ice performance, maybe for a while now, that he claims that were not properly, fully vetted to him during the sale process.
All right, no truth to the fact that they have to play Alexander Daig for 40 games instead. Thank you. That's good for reference.
Name some guys podcast.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, you don't know Alexander Daig?
Oh no, I know Alexander Daig.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you this, Novi Williams. Do you know the tale of the M&Ms and the Rolling Stones? Do you know this?
I do. Yes, the rider. Yeah.
Yeah, the rider in the contract that says if there's any, and I don't remember what color it was, if there's any red M&Ms in the dish in the dressing room, there's some hefty fine, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, the first time people heard it, I remember this, it was always like, oh, those prima donna rock stars. That it was always about like, oh, I can't believe that there's such prima donnas, yada, yada. And you will remember, I believe I've told you that I, for a summer, was an intern for the Rolling Stones. First during the Steel Wheels tour, they would practice putting up the stage at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, and then for the second half of the summer, the band actually came in, and it was my job to get the crew and the band anything they wanted, needed, whatever, for the day. So that was fun hanging out with Mick, Ron, and the boys. Yeah. But you also, you hear about those things and you have a conversation. It was inserted by the lawyers to make sure that the other lawyers read the entire contract. For if they showed up and looked in the dressing room and saw red M&Ms, they probably knew that the contract was not read carefully enough, and they knew they needed to at least address what the safety issues. It was about the really important things about the stage and the safety requirements. Did you at least read that? So that's what I just get the feeling like that's it. Like maybe we need the red M&M test in these sale contracts from now on and say, wait a minute, this makes no sense to me. We don't even serve M&Ms. Oh, okay, you read the deal. Good. Exactly. So wink, wink. We'll see if we can do something else on that. Close it out, by the way, Mike McCann with a great story. How do you feel like being the NCAA right now? It feels like the hits just keep on coming. So, we know there have been plenty of lawsuits against the NCAA regarding NIL. Claudia Wilken, the judge, recently certified one as a class action status, which means it is not just going to affect a few people, a few litigants. It is going to affect 14,000 plus litigants, and the NCAA is facing billions in damages. Now, I know the NCAA does not have billions to pay damages, not where they want to be.
Yeah, this is House versus the NCAA is the lawsuit. It was brought by a former Arizona State swimmer, and you nailed it. It's an NIL lawsuit, so essentially trying to get more of the money that is generated that athletes feel like was deprived of them by the NCAA's NIL restrictions in the past and ongoing ones. But the big news, the class action status for the damages, suddenly opening this up to not just current athletes, but to a lot of former athletes, dramatically increases the potential liability here for the NCAA and the biggest conferences. I saw this weekend that Greg Sankey was asked, is this ruling bad for you guys? And he was like, it's definitely not good for us. Like the obvious response.
By the way, he's the commissioner of the SEC.
Commissioner of the SEC. But yeah, this is one of a number of legal challenges right now that are growing increasingly dangerous, I think, for the NCAA, and specifically around antitrust violations, the way that athletes are treated, et cetera. Mike McCann also wrote something today about Dartmouth, right? The Dartmouth men's basketball team, which is seeking union or considering unionizing, playing at Duke to start the year. There's just a lot going on right now. There's waves of change that are coming to the NCAA from various directions, and this lawsuit is another one of those that suddenly becomes a potentially catastrophic ruling. And this is the same judge, Claudia Wilkin, who you mentioned, who ruled on the original Ed O'Bannon lawsuit 5 or 6 or maybe more years ago. So she's well versed in the way the NCAA has set up its business. So not a great last few days if you are Charlie Baker, if you're the NCAA, or if you're one of these major conferences, which is suddenly looking at a much larger liability in this lawsuit than maybe it looked like just a week ago. Yeah,
some of the things that make you go, I remember reading something recently where Charlie Baker said, I talked to a whole bunch of athletes and like none of them said they want to be employees. I don't know. And then a recent poll of Division I athletes, I believe, and it was like something like 65 or 70% said, yeah, we'd like to be employees of the school. Something a little incongruous in those two results.
And in that thing you're talking about, he said that I believe the number was 1,200. He said he talked to 1,200 athletes.
Well, must have been some handpicked 1,200.
That, yeah, and I don't know. I can't think of how long it's been. 1,200 people to talk to is such a large amount of people. I know that he's probably talked to a lot of people in his first few months on the job, but I know there's a lot of people in our industry that were like, 12, talk to 1,200 athletes.
And couldn't get one, huh?
A little skeptical about it, what that looked like or how you chose which ones to talk to. Because you're right, yeah, there's obviously plenty of athletes out there.
It was the private Slack channel for athletes who don't want to be employees.
Spoke to them, and it has 1,200 members.
1,200 members. Anyway, by the way, we don't do the slot, but I'm going to do the shout out to a solid listener, right? Who I met out at C-Suite. So thanks to Kate Pekorski. Met her out at C-Suite. Good luck. I'm not going to mention where you're going, but good luck with the new job. I mean, avid listener, knew all about your stuff, knew about the focus group of one and everything else. Loves the show. Embarking on an exciting career in sports business and sports law. So we wish you the best of luck. If you're a listener and you see Scott out in the wild, you can say hi. You'll get a shout out on the show. Yeah, well, I don't know if you will, but you might. But to show chutzpah and gumption, coming to the event, just kind of cold called. I'd like to go. Reached out to people, friends of the program, and folks who helped her in the industry, and there she was, and it was great. I mean, networking, exactly what somebody should be doing. You know me, I love to reward those who help themselves. I'd love to help you. Let me see you help yourself. And she sure did a whole lot of that. So good stuff. Shout out to Kate. You can probably find her on Twitter. I do not know what the handle is. That I don't know. You can find Scott on Twitter at Soshnick. You can find me on Twitter at Novi_Williams. The Sporticast is produced by Aaron Greenewald. Shout out to Aaron. Sportico's digital media editor, Cora Veltman, would like you to know that you can download the show and follow it at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.